Automation is a core element of sector coupling. It requires all machines, devices, sensors and actuators to be networked into an industrial Internet of Things. Here, Single Pair Ethernet, or SPE, ensures consistent communication. Compared to classic Ethernet, SPE has great advantages when it comes to data cabling. Just one wire pair instead of up to 8 wires, which saves resources and enables cabling in the tightest of spaces. A range of up to 1,000 meters for efficient transmission concepts right through to the field level, and easy network extension. Phoenix Contact provides a comprehensive product portfolio for the integration of single-pair Ethernet into the broadest range of automation applications.
My name is Oleksandr Ovdiienko. I'm an expert in energy security project financed by USAID, and now I have such great opportunity to moderate this very important topic and my preferable topic on energy efficiency in energy infrastructure, industry, construction, and transport. Now we have a lot of brilliant speakers, and I'd like to ask Mr. Bezus to make introductory words and present vision of State Agency for Energy Efficiency on future development of the sector in Ukraine.
Thank you, Alexander. Many thanks to Energy Club for conducting this forum, and my sincere gratefulness to all of colleagues for your readiness to share your time and your thoughts, your knowledge, your views on the very important issue of energy efficiency. I believe, and we at the agency are the believer in the principle of energy efficiency first, and this principle gaining from my point of view a lot of weight, especially in the view of perspectives of this huge scope of work for rebuilding Ukraine after our victory in this war. Of course, there are a lot of work which is done by the agency recently, and not only agency. We have the Energy Efficiency Directive implemented by the law of Ukraine. We have quite a big scope of work have been done by the agency from the point of view of development the sub-laws due to this law. We do a lot of work in respect to providing technical regulations, to provide energy labeling. But frankly speaking, I'm not sure if any scope of work in the field of energy efficiency is enough to use all the resources and all the capacity of this, let's say, separate energy source, if we, I believe, can call it. And again, I believe that especially in the view of this, how they call it, Marshall Plan for Ukraine, it's extremely important to put the very sound basement to such a plan, to develop further, to organize for the development of Ukraine of this basement of the idea of energy efficiency first. So I believe we'll have a very fruitful discussion. I hope to hear from you your thoughts and your views on the matter. Thanks again for your time, and welcome to the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Bezus, and I'd like to wish all the best to the state agency. It's very difficult times, and we very need in your streamlined work, and with your engagement to the energy agency, we see that working is more streamlined, and a lot of challenges now in implementing of energy efficiency law in Ukraine, and we are ready to support you, and please go ahead. Now I'd like to ask Mrs. Khrenova-Shymkina to make your speech. This director of the GIZ project promotion on energy efficiency and implementation of EU energy efficiency directive in Ukraine. And GIZ provided very strong support to Ukraine provided before, and we also hope that EMA will announce further support for energy efficiency sector in Ukraine. EMA, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sasha, for this nice words, and happy to see Valerii, Bezus here, and Belko, Victor, our colleague, our friend. We are standing with Ukraine and for Ukraine here. And, you know, GIZ really is doing a lot of this direction, many years. And I'm personally working 15 years on this direction, even with GIZ. And now we have a comprehensive program. And, you know, that our Ukraine, I would like to say, amazed the world. Ukraine even amazed yourself with the issue what is connected to the resilience, and our energy system also showing the huge resilience today. And for sure, we are not alone. German government, Swiss government supported a lot to us. And I have a mandate from German government and Swiss government to support national level. We are actively working with state agency of energy efficiency, with Minregion. And what I would like to say, even during the wartime, 4 very important legislation document was approved. What is the signal what Ukraine transferring to the world? We are ready to be our country. We are ready to fight for our country. We are ready to suffer, and we are ready to work for the new country. And now we are creating a lot of circumstances, the basis, the stability for the new renovation and reconstruction. Then I would like to mention that it's very important that now, in this difficult time, we are working on the legislation part. We create the circumstance for the energy efficient green future for Ukraine. It's also connected to the urban developments. It's also connected for the construction debris. This is damages what we have, because now we also did some attention with Minregion to this direction. It's a lot of damages, a lot of construction garbage. And this experience any country has not. We cannot learn. We try to learn from Syria, unfortunately, but we can say that it's 100 times more damages in Ukraine than in Syria. And no one is not developing them. Then we create a lot of know-how. We create a lot of experience what we will share in the world in the future, but we need the support. And energy efficiency in municipalities component. We also doing support for the Ukrainian municipalities. We transfer 100,000 euro per 20 municipalities this year. And this money comes from the Swiss government. And we propose to the cities to give us proposals what they would like to do. The original plan was to do energy efficiency demo project. And now we told them that you can extend your project for the support for district heating or water supply to help critical infrastructure to survive. And I'm so happy to tell you that 4 cities who was not so damaged to the Western Ukraine, who is decide to continue energy efficiency project, and another one who is doing their project, they also doing with energy efficient element. what we can learn from that. It means that our work, what we did many years with energy management system in the Ukrainian municipalities, it works good because municipalities understand the importance of the energy efficiency. This is the work of the energy managers and mayors and the deputy mayors who was involved in this process many years. And this is the pillars with what we are standing now. And because we know that Ukraine needs also additional army of the professionals who can also work on the energy efficiency and now with recovery. And for that, we supported energy efficiency hubs. We called energy innovation hubs. We also, before the war, even we did a lot of events together with the State Agency of Energy Efficiency to invite universities, to inspire them to keep their attention on this important direction. And this year we are working with 50 PTU, these vet colleges, who is doing special courses for the people, for the students, how to install insulation, how to install good quality of the windows, what to do with roofs, how to insulate the roofs. This is a lot of work, what we are doing together, and we did not expect to have 50 colleges to be a part of the project. Our plan was just to take 30 something, but they asked, and because we are doing this online, we said, okay, we will extend our work with them because this is very important for Ukraine. We need workers and we need professional workers who can really understand the issue, who can really do their work by hands, because the ministry and the state agency can create a lot of good legislation and architects can do a lot of good drawings, but if we will have not people who can do it in the place, we will not succeed. And also we have a component what called energy efficiency in companies. And here we extend also our scope and a little bit trying to help companies who is damaged or who need relocation. I suppose this is very, very important part. And I see Alexei Pashchenko here, also colleagues from UNIDO. We are doing also coordination, donor coordination on this issue, because no one country cannot be stable just to receive humanitarian support or any kind of grants and macroeconomical money. We need to have a stable working economy, and our companies was not effective energy-wise, and they need knowledge, they need investment to this topic, because without stable economy, we cannot proceed, we cannot survive as a country. And our goal to have a green, energy efficient country, and it's not possible without the companies. This is why we also include this to our big portfolio. And not in the frame of my project, but in the frame of our cluster, we are working to support the energy efficiency fund. We also doing some renovation of the residential OSBB condominiums in Lviv, because, and also in our portfolio, we have a climate projects, and also with 1 year ago, we actively start to work on just transition issue. It's a lot of colleagues who is here. They know about this work because we have a special program called Ukrainian-German Energy Partnership. This is we are doing together with Ministry of Energy of Ukraine. And then we have a 5 direction: energy efficiency for sure, just transition, stable energy system, decarbonization, and hydrogen. We also have a project called hydrogen to Diplo, H2 Diplo. No, it means diplomats. And this is very important, crucial reforms, what is going on in Europe, and the German government supported also here in Ukraine this direction. And for sure, we are working hard, and this our staff sitting in Ukraine and suffer it together with all people. but we receive additional money this year from Swiss government. We send it to directly to the Ukrainian municipalities. And we are so happy then we can help 20 municipalities this year and maybe a little bit more next year to help them to keep city infrastructure going on. And I hope we will inspire more people, more countries to help Ukraine in this difficult situation. And for sure, we will do everything energy efficient because we believe on that. This is our religion. I'm happy to see all of you, and I hope you will have a productive discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ima, so much. Please don't stop doing your great job, and we also need to feel your great energy. Please don't save your energy for anyone. We need your energy. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Andreas Gürtler, Director of European Industrial Foundation, to make his speech.
Yes, so I hope you can hear me. I'm here with my colleague Henrik from the Swedish Energy Agency. Danish Energy Agency. Maybe you say a few words about yourself, Henrik?
Yes, yes. I was just invited here without knowing about what was going on, but I've been working with energy efficiency in Denmark for 30 years as energy advisor, energy auditor, and now I'm working for Danish Energy Agency, which is also doing quite a lot of work in Ukraine, and we have lowered our activities a little, but I understand the other day that it is increasing again, and we are focused very much on electricity distribution systems and so on. We also had a long-term advisor in Ukraine, and I think she will be back or he will be back later when it's possible. So, I mean, what I have in my mind is working with energy efficiency, especially in the industries, and I have a lot of contacts also to the colleagues that are working with Ukraine. Myself, I'm mostly working with energy efficiency in industry in Vietnam, but there are a lot of similarities, so I'm very happy to be here today. And in Vietnam, we also work very close together with GIZ. So thank you for having me here and having the chance to meet all of you. So that will be the start of a new beginning. So thank you.
So I thought it's a good idea to bring Henrik with me. And I also jumped in because I did a small intervention at the last meeting, actually not to forget about energy efficiency. And then the spontaneous reaction was, let's join this session as well. We are both in Antwerp, close to Brussels, at the ECEEE Zero Decarbonization Conference. And this is why I just took Henrik with me. And yeah, coming back to the topic, I think what we could add here is that it's actually pretty hot, and it has been discussed here in Antwerp, the role of energy management and energy audits to achieve, of course, that industry becomes more energy efficient. And what is very important for the legislation, what is a recommendation and a learning from the European experience, is that in the existing energy efficiency directive, the limit for a company, if it has to carry out an energy audit every 4 years, was the size of the company, but not the energy consumption. And in the energy efficiency directive recast, it will now be the consumption of a company, which is, and that's by experience, the real value you have to look at if you want to decide a company needs to do an energy management system. So for now, it's 100 terajoules, but we've heard here from the Commission that the discussion between Parliament and the Council is now to take this down to 18 terajoules. So a company which consumes 18 or more terajoules per year will have a mandatory obligation to run a professional energy management, which is the best way to make a company more energy efficient, we think. And the company which has 3.6 terajoules or more will need to do the energy audit regularly. And this is quite ambitious from the Parliament. We don't know if the Council will really agree to it. But in principle, to transport to this meeting the idea and for the future legislation in the Ukraine, I think the important fact is to put a limit on energy consumption, not on the company's size. I would always promote energy management rather than energy audits themselves, because energy management have this big advantage that it's continuously improving. And already in the planning phase, to give you a very simple example, if in the planning phase you make the mistake, it will be very hard to correct the mistake afterwards. So the simple example, because I'm talking from the European Industrial Insulation Foundation, so we have some experience with technical insulation systems in industry. The typical challenge you find is that the plant has been built, the pipes are pretty close to each other, and then you want to put an energy efficient insulation system on it, and you don't have enough space to put enough insulation to make it really energy efficient. So that means in the planning process, it is very, very important to already think about the level of performance you want to have and you want to achieve, and to build the plant according to it. And then from my side, the last information is we are working on a European standard defining energy efficiency classes for technical insulation systems. And inside this system, actually policy or the company owner simply defines, I want the system to be insulated with an energy class B system. Then the plant builder and the planning agency will get an indicative space requirement for this energy class. So they know I need 200 millimeters of insulation, so I need to build the pipe with enough space. And like this, you realize these energy efficiency savings potentials. And that's just an example from the field where I have the expertise, but this is of course true for anything else. So there is more technologies like we've learned here in Antwerp at the conference about industry heat pumps, which are very effectively, of course, also helping to increase the decarbonized energy and of course also the efficiency. And I think with this, I would hand over to you, Henrik, because you have a lot of experience in a broader field of energy efficiency measures.
Yes, that's right. I mean, we in Denmark, we do this every 4 years for the bigger companies, and for me to see that it's a minimum, definitely a minimum to only do it every 4 years, and only having energy audit reporting what is beneficial without having the tools to put it into a perspective and to a long-term plan often makes it not good enough, saying in that way that some companies only want to be in compliance. So the energy auditor either get the job to do the energy audit, but only if, and then there are some restrictions. It could be not putting too many energy proposals in the report or whatever. So we are talking about also with my colleagues in the Danish energy industry or agency that we have to find a way to keep the energy auditors in a certain mode where they are loyal, 100% loyal to the authorities, to the regulations and so on, so that the companies have to and must do what is found. And there is a lot of possibilities. I mean, still in Denmark, we're working with this for 30 years now, and I still believe I can go in anywhere, find at least 10% in energy efficiency. We've just heard of one example. There are many, many more examples, but also energy management systems, not only energy management as a standard, but systems where companies are getting regulatory data electronic or automatically. Now Ukraine have the chance to add that into the regulation, because that is where really it helps. I mean, everybody wants to have those energy figures during the year and so on, and if it's done manually, it'll be with some sort of wrong, I mean, it won't be always be the right one. It won't be at a certain time and so on. So focusing on building the fundament before you build the house, that's the same with energy efficiency, that you really have to be sure that what you do is the right thing, and keep on keeping it on a track so that you can follow the next year the investment or the energy reduction that we did last year. Is it still there? or has it disappeared? Because then the statistics saying, oh, we have done this and that, and so many terajoule in Ukraine or in Denmark or whatever. And then when it comes to that, it is not right because it was only for a shorter period. So, I mean, and convert that into CO2 emissions too is very, very important. So, I mean, there are, if you could say, if it's open for adding in new and well-documented knowledge in a new perspective, in a new legislation, then it's really now it should be taken care of and be revised and done. So that, I mean, we struggle with that in Denmark, that we have a system. It's very difficult to change. I experienced the same in Vietnam. They have a system. It's very difficult to change. So I just want to say, if you have a chance to make the right system in Ukraine at the moment and prepare for it, then really focus on that, because that is the basic, the fundamentals is much, much better than having somebody showing that you can save 10% on ventilation or 20% on lighting or 50% or whatever, because it disappears. The savings are disappearing if you cannot follow them year by year by year or day by day by day. So that is one of my key points. There's a lot of technical issues, and then there's all this about as I normally say, energy savings is not about technology. It's about psychology, because you have to have the companies, the people in the companies to buy your ideas and believe in you. I mean, trust and believing in this is a good idea is much more than just a technology issue, because everybody can say that my car is more better than yours and so on. It doesn't help if they don't trust it, and that is what gives the long-term energy efficiency results.
I think maybe to add, we've been discussing it here at the conference in the Netherlands. There is a legislation in place from the 1st of January 2023. It's called the Onderzoekspflicht. And this one makes it mandatory for any industrial company above certain consumption to inspect the plant for energy efficient measures. And because that doesn't save 1 kilowatt hour, it comes with the obligation that they need to invest and remediate everything which has a payback time of 5 years or less. And that will be checked by the Dutch government. So the combination of energy audit and management with the legal obligation to do it within a given time frame, as long as it has also some economic viability, let's say. Germany does a similar thing. We have received a leaked version of the new energy efficiency law. It's not there yet, but already there it says that anything with a payback time of 2 years or less has to be implemented within the next 20 months.
Impressive.
So, yeah.
Impressive, absolutely impressive.
And this combination is really very, very important. So that's maybe a good idea.
Yeah. And voluntary agreements is also a point to focus on. I mean, get the companies, the end users, a carrot, a big carrot and a little stick, not a big stick and a little carrot. I mean, a big carrot, get them to understand what's in it for me, how can I perform. If you add on it could be a tax or it could be something else that can be, if they don't do anything, they have to pay. If they do anything, they will be released from the burdens. That is a main picture of this. That makes it much, much easier to understand what's going on. And even the technical thing that electricity supply, as an example, or gas supply, the less electricity you get the companies or the enterprises to use, the less power supply you have to design. So it is also a cost, and that cost somebody has to pay it, either it's the company or the government. But if they don't use energy, they don't need that much copper or that big transformators and so on.
Andreas, Henrik, you raise so important questions and so important topics. Thank you so much. And on behalf of Mr. Bezus, I will ask you to join now. State agencies should to develop a system for register of energy auditors and system of monitoring and register of summary of energy audits. And we see on the very beginning, we can make such big basement for great analytical job for future and implementing of good state system of supporting. So please join this very important topics. We need your experience and your thoughts, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. I will do that.
Now, I'd like to ask and give the floor to Mr. Brian Matherway. He's head of Energy Efficiency, International Energy Agency. And first of all, thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to International Energy Agency that Ukraine was moved in statistics to Europe region, and I am sure that providing relevant and right messages to all world, it's very, very important for general policy. So, Brian, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Oleksandr. It's a great privilege and honor to be with you today at a time, and let me start by expressing on my own behalf and on behalf of all of us, the International Energy Agency, our full support and solidarity in the grave times in Ukraine. And we are delighted, to be building our relationship with Ukraine in these times. We're very honored that recently Ukraine became our newest association member of the International Energy Agency. And of course, we were particularly honored that Minister Galushenko has engaged with us in various ways, including speaking at our annual energy efficiency conference recently in June, again highlighting the importance of energy efficiency and the focus that is being put on it. We hope to continue to build our close relationships in the future as well, and so I'm very pleased to be here today. If I start on energy efficiency generally, energy efficiency has been part of efficiency policies for governments around the world for some decades, but I think, as everybody here knows, maybe it hasn't always been a very particular high priority, or it probably hasn't got the attention or the investment that it really deserves in terms of the benefits it can bring. In the last few years, we've seen some change of that, and particularly maybe 2 or 3 years ago, as governments started to adopt stronger climate ambition and particularly set net zero targets. We saw that many countries realized that they could not achieve their net zero goals without a stronger focus on energy efficiency. And in fact, without starting really initially with energy efficiency. And certainly our roadmap of the pathway to net zero shows that unless countries lead with strong action on energy efficiency in this decade, between now and 2030, then it's almost impossible to envisage a path to net zero by 2050. At the same time, with that focus on climate, maybe sometimes governments didn't integrate their thinking on energy security and energy efficiency quite as much as they should have. And of course, the events of 2022 have radically changed that. And all governments have realized the need to really put a priority focus on energy security, on questions of price and affordability, and to integrate that in their thinking with climate action as well. It's not a question of something has become less of a priority. It is certainly not a question that any government that we see is weakening its commitment to climate action. But I think there's out of difficult circumstances, a welcome rebalancing of a focus to need to think about the short-term security issues as well as the issues around net zero and climate mitigation. And of course, when governments do that integrated thinking, energy efficiency comes up first because it's a key area that can deliver in terms of lowering energy costs for consumers very quickly, enhancing energy security and reducing reliance on imports, which is such a key question, while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And certainly, even in the last few months, we have seen governments around the world introducing strong new policies on energy efficiency or reinforcing existing policies. We've seen many European governments, for example, putting significant amounts of money into grant programs for home energy efficiency, supports for business energy efficiency. And we've seen major new policy announcements with very strong efficiency components, including in the EU with the REPowerEU, but also more globally with the Inflation Reduction Act in the US, new acts and strong commitments in Japan, in Korea, and in many other parts of the world. As we track particularly financial commitments since COVID, and we look at the money being committed by governments around the world to help economic recovery post-COVID, and of course now in 2022. Of the money associated with clean energy, more than half is directly associated with energy efficiency. And I think that is governments recognizing that energy efficiency can move quickly, it can create jobs, it can reduce bills, and therefore it can bring many benefits very quickly to people's lives, socially and economically, as well as building a cleaner and more resilient energy system. We also know that we could be going much faster on energy efficiency. We know the range of opportunities in industry, in transport, in buildings are all very considerable, and there's a lot of untapped potential in energy efficiency in all sectors and in all countries in the world. For example, across Europe, in every city, you will find homes that some homes in similar regions take twice, if not 3 times as much money to keep warm as their neighbors, simply because they are less well built or they're less efficient. The heating system is old and inefficient, the insulation is poor, and you see dramatic differences demonstrating the benefits that can be achieved with a stronger push on energy efficiency. And of course, for Ukraine, as it starts to think about the rebuilding phase, it really is important to think about how rebuilding can really, help people in recovery by creating jobs in energy efficiency, but also by rebuilding in ways that are resilient, less import dependent, but of course lower cost to run. Whether it's in buildings or in industry or in transport infrastructure, we know that putting a focus on energy efficiency will really make a difference in the short term and in the longer term in terms of the gains that can be made. I think everybody here knows that. We also know that there are a lot of policies available to governments to do this, and there's a lot of experience even in this meeting here today from different parts of the world about the kind of policies that will work and that can help deliver these goals. From our point of view in the IEA, we work with governments all over the world. We track what is working in good policy. We understand how governments can learn from each other, and we will, of course, make all of that knowledge available to Ukraine, as we are already doing in many ways. And in fact, just next week, we will produce our annual energy efficiency market report for the world that will look around the world at progress in energy efficiency, what policies are working, where investment is stronger, and where we could see more. As Ukraine looks to its rebuilding phase, as has already been said, there are many great ingredients already in place in terms of the energy efficiency laws, including those put in place just in 2021, the energy efficiency fund that was put in place in 2019. So a lot of the ingredients are already there, and I think there's really a great opportunity here out of difficult circumstances with a strong focus on energy efficiency in the next phase. So let me conclude, Chair, by saying that the IEA will be a very close partner. We intend to continue to work as closely as we can with Ukraine, as we do with governments around the world, helping them to learn from each other. And we look forward to building that relationship in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Your statistic is very important, and you are doing a great job. And thank you for promotion so important topics. And now I'd like to ask Paweł Różacki or Sashin Partha, representatives from Transition Technologies Advanced Solutions company, to make the presentation. The company is known in such products as data management and visualization, optimization, maintenance management, cybersecurity, reporting, etc. So guys, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for having me also on this meeting. Just to confirm, you can hear me, yes? That's perfect. I would like to give you some overview on energy management from the perspective and idea of IT company that is globally working also with EU. And I would like to give you some overview, not only on the energy efficiency on dedicated company's point of view, but from the overall cycle, from the production of the energy going through district system, dedicated buildings, companies. And at last, I would like to give you some overview on the initiative that was managed by the EU, where as TT we are also cooperating after the Syria war, what kind of initiative toward digitalization and also energy efficiency is managed in Jordan. So just in 3 minutes, I will give you such overview, and for support my discussion, I would like to present the few slides I have prepared for that purpose. I hope that you can see it at the moment.
Sorry, but please limit you in
Yes.
6 minutes, please.
Yes, of course. And what was mentioned also during the meeting, there are a few areas that need to be managed in order to proceed with the energy management. And data monitoring that, for example, Andreas mentioned is one of the first key thing that need to be processed. Additionally, such data need to be collected in cybersecure way, just to have no threats. But it was some of the discussion on Monday. And having all of those data, we can proceed with some of the initiatives related to the efficiency based on what we have at the moment. And starting from one of the examples we have processed, this is related to the power plants that at the moment in the Ukrainian are very critical infrastructure. And also when we rebuild Ukraine, I hope as soon as possible, the power plant and their flexibility of operation is very crucial to operate. And here I assume that together with EU, we need to support the process of having this approach and delivery of energy in possible flexible way in order to adjust to further energy efficiency, zero emission approach. And such actions that can be managed on power plants are one of the crucial things that may need to be managed. The next part, having the power plants increased, we need to take a look on more municipals and, for example, heat district networks, just to avoid the situations of the overheating. And this will cause the way of reducing the energy consumption basically in the cities. And such approach may be also very useful in managing the CO2 reduction and efficiency of overall cities. And later on, the approach toward energy efficiency inside specific buildings, and not only a typical night and day operation, but also with some modern approach, analysis of the people movement and adjustment of each the energy consumption inside is feasible to be managed and may save the potential of power generation that is managed. And at the end of this very short presentation, I would like to promote the idea that we have a process together with EU inside the Jordan. Jordan had a huge problem after the Syria war, and there were a lot of refugees coming over there. And EU wanted to support the process of the digitalization and improvement of the small and medium companies, forming a center of excellence. And this is a really brilliant approach where together with some additional funds from EU or other sources or other donors, together with the local small and medium companies, some IT companies or other manufacturing companies, and together with the universities, to build a specific community that may work together toward the idea of Internet of Things, and to use the modern technologies to improve the operation of the existing factories, buildings, and there are a lot of potential in this area, and I believe that such type of energy management approach and new technologies may be used around such thing. That is why the approach of Center of Excellence inside the Ukraine may be a really good idea for future development. Thank you for this short time, and I hope we can later on also discuss some of those
Paweł,
topics.
thank you. Your inputs are very important. Also, please share your experience and your ideas. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Adam Jędrzejczak, East Europe Regional President and Danfoss, to say some words. The only comment that the company has more than 90 years history of innovation, and it was created in 1930. And in 9 years, it had 26 people staff, and now in August 21, they had 37,000 of employers. So, Adam, please.
Yeah, thanks, Oleksandr. That won't be Adam, as we've been informed that he has a private issue, so he was not able to join. So I'll take care. I'm Andriy Berestyan, and I'm General Manager of Danfoss in Ukraine. But we've been preparing the speech together with Adam for this particular meeting, so that I will take over about the Danfoss experience within the energy saving, as this is our core business. So basically, the global crisis is just urge everybody that we need to look into the energy efficiency, and from our company point of view, the ways of the decarbonization of the world, there has a three principle. The first, that we must use less energy. Second, we must use the energy which are already used, or reuse the energy which already been used. And the third one is look for the clean energy. And these are three principles which we are using in our operations within the Danfoss, and these are kind of fundamentals on our approach toward the energy saving. For instance, if we are talking about Danfoss goal is to move or to make the global operation carbon neutral by 2030. That means that all 40,000 employees working on the 95 factories, more than in 20 countries, will be carbon neutral by 2030. And this is the efforts of the company. And I would like to share a little bit of the experience on how that is possible to be achieved within the relatively short period. So the first significant step was that we built this year the first carbon neutral factory in Danfoss, which is located in Poland. So these are the new factory in Grodzisk Mazowiecki, and it's used a modern heat recovery system, which use the energy from the renewable energy sources. So in our production, no energy is wasted. So all energy is collected and then put into the heating system to heat up the buildings which is nearby. So all heating, cooling, and ventilation installation are produced machine are powered by the green energy, which is also sourced at the factory. So basically, this is a kind of best-in-class factory which was built this year, and the rest of the factories would be following the same principle and the same example, and will be modernized by 2030 to be carbon neutral. So the company would be carbon neutral by 2030, and this is an ambitious goal which we are putting in front of us. There are a lot of talks about the new technologies, how to make the decarbonization, what to be used, and so on. But I can assure you that already existing technologies, which can be used already here and already now, if you would be able to utilize them, then that will be a huge step toward the energy efficiency. So there are basically, right now, it's not the matter of the new technologies rather than the matter of utilize what is already existing on the market. The challenge, what we see now also in Europe, is that there is an approach toward the energy crisis, focusing mainly on the supply of energy, on the gas supply and so on, but less focus is put on the demand side, meaning that the focus on the energy efficiency, to our opinion, is a bit less or not enough. I mean, also in the Europe. Let me put it some examples. If you are talking about the energy saving, for instance, in the transport sector, then the vehicles and the ships and machines and so on, they're using much more fuel than necessary to make the needed task. In the industrial sector, electric motors also wasting too much energy in order to rotate some machines. If you are talking about the buildings, both commercial and residential, then again, a lot of energy are just wasted because that doesn't have the simple measures to monitor what was already we discussed today, to monitor energy use and regulate the energy use. And the good news is that this can be done pretty fast and effective with the existing technologies. For instance, if you're talking the buildings, then the very simple device like a radiator thermostat, which can be put on the radiators, can save up to 20%. And we can observe that even in the Europe, 500 million radiators has simple manual valves. So that means that there are far big potential also in Europe. I'm not talking about Ukraine, as in Ukraine the potential is even bigger probably, but also in the Europe, this type of simple technologies are not used or limited to be used. But if you go further on, I mean, and use not only the radiator thermostat as a mechanical one, but make the electronic, then there is a much more potential to save the energy in the households. If you are talking about the heat supply, then the fossil fuel boilers or the gas boilers, if that would be replaced by the heat pumps, then it could save up to 75% of the energy. And this is, for the private household, for the private houses, this is the only way to decarbonize and to make the savings. However, not every building would be as effective with the users of the heat pump, because I mean, if you have a huge heat losses, then the heat pump will be not as effective as it could be. So this is a kind of a complex approach need to be taken in order to utilize the modern technologies. Let's say that if you are talking, if you take the reports and from the International Energy Agency, that if you put the focus on the energy efficiency and reduce the CO2 emission, this is the 1/3 of the total emission needed to implement the net zero target by 2050. So 30% of the goal is within the energy efficiency across the Europe. Of course, we need to look into medium and long term, and then look into the green or renewable energy. However, our thoughts that we need to put in the further decade much more focus on the existing technologies, on the existing buildings, in order to reduce the consumption of the energy. Let's say that if you take an example from the headquarters in Denmark, what we have right now, that the headquarters in Denmark which is about 250,000 square meters under the roof, will be carbon neutral already this year. What this means? That means that we are not only developing medicine and the technologies for the other companies or for the households and so on, but we are also take this medicine ourselves and showing that all the carbon neutral factories, carbon neutral buildings, carbon neutral cities like Sønderborg in Denmark, this is possible to achieve in the very short future.
So
if I take a little bridge,
I ask you to summarize.
Yeah, sure. If I take a little bridge to Ukraine, then all those technologies like they use in the surplus heat within the district heating, excess heat from the heat pump, from the green energy, and so on. Then we have the best assets which we got from our Soviet past. This is district heating, and what we need is to keep district heating as such in Ukraine and make it more efficient, because now it's an inefficient monster which is consuming too much. And here, just to summarize, that we see that at the government level, keeping district heating is a priority. However, we are facing the issues on the municipal level, when the municipality is very often taking the decision, not calculated decision, to close the district heating and make the individual heating, or choose another way of heat supply of the municipalities or the territories, which is not correct. So this one, what could be done is to bring the investment within the district heating sector, but that's need to take a market mechanism for the heat market, make a competition within the district heating that would enable the investors to come and invest into such a huge infrastructure like district heating sector in Ukraine. And the gas reform or reform of the gas market shows that this is possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andriy. Absolutely agree with you that regional development and communication at regional level, it's very, very important, and state agency is doing a lot in this field. Please join to this job and help state agency to promote across regions.
That's what we are doing. Thank you.
Now I would like to give floor to Mr. Marco Matteini, Industrial Development Officer of UNIDO. UNIDO programs was very, very successful previously and had very important and big influence on industrial energy efficiency before. And please promote your future activities, what is going now, and what are you thinking to do in future? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oleksandr, and my thanks also to the state agency on energy efficiency, energy savings for inviting UNIDO to this forum, and the colleagues of the Energy Club organizing it. So it's a privilege to have the opportunity to contribute to this discussion. As Oleksandr mentioned, UNIDO since 2015 has been implementing a project on industrial energy efficiency with a special focus actually on energy management system and ISO 3001. I was pleased to hear many of the colleagues referring to this key solution. Within this project, we have worked with government institutions, with Ukrainian industries and Ukrainian market actors to accelerate, to the extent possible, the growth of Ukrainian market for industrial energy efficiency services, technologies, and also investments. So my considerations will focus on industry mostly. Now, talking about industry, I think that maybe for the sake also of our viewers or listener, it's important to remind that industry process and energy operations are pretty complex by nature. And we have many industrial subsectors where operations are constantly changing due to production volume variation, production mix, changing in processes, changing in people. But to really maintain optimal energy performance in industry is very challenging, and that this is something that applies not only in Ukraine, but I would say in all countries where UNIDO has been working. Now, the COVID in 2020, 2021 had, I think, a shocking impact on the market context for industrial energy efficiency. And as far as we could see within our projects, it has had an effect on the attitude of enterprises on energy efficiency. But of course, with the beginning of the armed conflict after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia in February this year, the whole situation within industries in Ukraine with regard to energy efficiency has greatly worsened and become drastically more complicated. We are completing a survey where we try to collect information from companies, but I would say that 90% of the companies that participated are working at reduced production capacity. They are working with reduced technical staff, or they have new staff that, however, has not been trained. All companies reported disruption of their supply chains for equipment and services related to energy utilities. And a number of these companies had to make urgent emergency decision to ensure production continuity, but maybe these decisions were not always the best in the medium and long term. So something that we see as a problem, and probably is even greater than before, is that the companies are lacking the human and financial resources needed to ensure an energy optimize operation of their systems and of their production assets. And this is preventing them to save energy, to minimize consumption and cost. And it has also a detrimental impact on their planning. So looking a bit to what we think would be extremely important and useful for Ukraine and its industry. On the one hand, I think we need to do as much as we can to help now industries in optimizing their production assets, but to minimize their energy consumption under the given situation and with what they have. Now, in our view, this is something that could be achieved by focusing on people. And this would be people within industries, but also working with service providers in the market. We have experience in other countries and also Ukraine, but as Andreas and also Henrik I think mentioned earlier on, but with some solutions like energy management system and other operational control optimization measure, results can be generated in a relatively short time with a very limited cost to the enterprises. And I would say that COVID show us that there is a good amount of work that can be also done within the industrial energy efficiency space without travel or in-person meetings. So unfortunately, the current armed conflict situation, that should be also taken into account. For information, just in August, in collaboration with another UNIDO project that has industrial parks as a target, we have started a program with 10 companies to support them in the implementation of energy management system and other measures to help optimize their energy utilities. This in the short term, if possible. Then I think in parallel, we need to work on developing some possibly comprehensive and lasting supporting programs for industry, where certainly governments and donor organizations like UNIDO and maybe also private sector partners could work together to support the integration of energy efficiency in the resilience and recovery strategies and investments of Ukrainian industry. I think Brian mentioned it earlier, and I think there was another colleague that mentioned it, but it's really a huge opportunity in the tragedy that has happened for Ukrainian industry to rebuild better and with level of technology and green element as probably any other country in the world. Now, within this type of broader and longer type of supporting program, certainly there will have to be also financial support. Within the survey that I mentioned earlier, we have also asked companies what are the biggest barriers that are facing at the moment with their energy efficiency and energy security activities, and 62% of the respondents indicated the lack of credit. So I think financial part will be critical, I think, moving forward in supporting industry and Ukrainian economy to recover on a green and energy efficient path. I'll stop here and happy to discuss later if time will allow.
Thank you, Marco. Very important topics you raised, and absolutely agree with you and Ima that restarting of Ukrainian economy is very important, and we believe that such restarting will be based on energy efficient and best available technologies that should be brought to Ukraine. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Ivan Filiutsich to UNDP project on ESCO modality in Ukraine, provide their view of future development. This project is not new, but I believe that it will restart it and on stable basis will be operating in Ukraine. As ESCO model is absolutely important to actually provide alternative financing for energy efficiency projects implementation.
Thank you, Oleksandr. Good afternoon, colleagues. Now I would like to deliver you a brief presentation. Let me share my screen.
10 minutes, please, maximum.
Yes, I would like to make a brief overview of opportunities for energy efficiency improvements in the public buildings in Ukraine using energy performance contracts. And I would start from the brief analysis of key indicators of the energy efficiency market in Ukraine. As you see, in the last 3 years, total government support and financing of energy efficiency projects in Ukraine exceeded $62 million US. Although energy efficiency investment has declined since February 2022, total energy efficiency market in Ukraine values at $2.5 billion per year, and it is highly dependent on imports of equipment. And in fact, energy performance performance contracts can play a very important role in supporting private energy efficiency investment in Ukraine. Public sector in Ukraine is a very important category of energy consumers. For example, it accounts for about 5–6% of total energy consumption in the country, and it's responsible for about 5 million tons of CO2 emissions per year. And there are more than 77,000 public buildings in Ukraine, which are one of the largest categories of energy consumers. Unfortunately, average specific energy consumption of public buildings in the country is very high. It's almost 400 kilowatt hours per 1 square meter per year. That is far beyond the energy efficiency benchmarks. And now I would like to go in more detail with the current status of energy expenditures of the public sector. For example, here we have two key categories of energy consumers: public buildings that belong to the central public authorities and public buildings that belong to municipalities. Central public authorities in Ukraine are large consumers of energy. According to the draft budget for 2023, total energy and utilities bill for this category of consumers is almost $400 million. That results in at least 40–50% inefficient expenditures due to high energy intensity of the building stock. The total number of the municipal buildings in Ukraine is 14 times higher than that of buildings to the central public authorities. That means a very high potential for energy efficiency improvement in the public sector. Annual energy bill of Ukrainian municipalities vary from 200 to 700 hryvnias per capita, or from 100 to 300 hryvnia per 1 square meter public buildings area. That results in a need to spend from 3 to 8% of the total municipal budget for energy. And current status of the energy performance contract market in Ukraine can be described with a couple of very interesting figures. For example, this market is under development now, and in last 3 years, almost 600 EPC contracts have been signed with total contract value almost $47 million. EPC market in Ukraine is formed by 39 ESCO companies, and top 5 market players account for 68% of the total market value. Typical EPC contracts imply modernization of heating systems of the buildings with installation of individual heating plants, heat consumption regulators, replacement of lighting fixtures. An average EPC contract value in the last 3 years varied from $64 to $170,000. What we are doing now? Our approach is to incorporate good practices of ESCO market from the EU member states in terms of typical size of EPC contract, in terms of its duration. For example, for EU member states, the typical EPC contract exceeds 10 years. And we also try to look very attentively on the best practices of the EU member states and good regulatory practices and recommendations for ESCO market. Our approach our project focuses on several intervention areas. We are working on optimal business model for EPC market in Ukraine, on promotion of amendments to legal framework, assistance to government promotion to ESCO market. We also cooperate actively with business, with Association of ESCO companies in Ukraine. We provide consultancy support to municipalities who are very active participants of EPC market, and we focus on capacity building activities and on scaling up new ESCO modalities. And our strategic approach is that we should achieve at least $100 million by 2030 of investment into ESCO market. According to our approach, the mature ESCO market structure in Ukraine should include probably super ESCO, small and medium-sized private ESCO, and municipal ESCO. And in our opinion, effective ESCO market should rely on effectively working supporting instruments like risk-sharing facility or, for example, guarantee fund. And that approach is supported by a very high investment need. For example, according to our estimates, the minimal investments required in improvement of energy efficiency of the public building is $2 billion. And if we look at the more optimistic scenario, the total investment required in this sector may reach $14 billion within the next 15 or 20 years. So that means that radical modernization of energy efficiency financing mechanisms are required in Ukraine. And our strategic goal is to work and cooperate very actively with international financial institutions like the World Bank, European Investment Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, to mobilize up to $100 million within the next 3-5 years in public super ESCO company, and supporting financing instrument like, for example, guarantee fund or risk sharing facility, because these good practices have been proved in other countries like Turkey or India, for example. And finally, we also consider ESCO market EPC contracts as a very important project modality in post-war reconstruction package for Ukraine. And we expect that the governmental institution, ministries, and state agency for energy efficiency will support in this activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One very important messages, and I hope ESCO companies will be very active in post-war activity, and even now. During wartime, unfortunately. Yes. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Anthony Durant, researcher from Fraunhofer Institute for System and Innovation Research, make a final presentation, and later I hope we will have possibility to hear final remarks from Mr. Bezus. Unfortunately, we had another quite significant attack on CHPs in Kiev now, and we hope Mr. Bezus will have possibility to speak to us. Final remarks. Thank you. Mr. Durant, please.
Yeah, first I wanted to explain that I was supporting GIZ and the ministry in Ukraine in a project in 2018 and 2019 with my colleague and boss, Clemens Rode. And at that time, it was already impressive to see the motivation of all involved people, including all the stakeholders, wanted to improve the framework for energy efficiency in the industry. And I'm impressed to see also that even the last months of the war, Ukraine is still moving forward to improve this framework. I just wanted to make a focus on policies now and explaining why we need a policy framework for energy efficiency, because basically companies are not investing just like that in energy efficiency technologies, and therefore you need some incentives. It is the carrot. You need also some information and networking. It is a tambourine that you see, but also sometimes to move forward, you need a stick, and that's why you need some regulation. And therefore, you need a whole package of policy in order to have the highest impact on energy efficiency. And therefore, also you need usually a package of policies, and you have two levels. The first level is rather a governance level, where you have to define targets, to plan policies, where you need an agency to do the work, and where you need to also to eliminate distortion, basically, of energy prices. But my focus today would be rather on the specific policies and measures you need to tackle the energy efficiency improvement. And the main three pillars here are the regulation, which is a stick, also transparency and information, which is a tambourine, and incentive and financing, which is a carrot. And of course, you need also some capacity building and networking, and finally, some research development and also promotion of best available technology. Basically, I think we got an overview during the presentation that there are already some instruments already implemented in the Ukraine. And then I wanted to start on regulation, which is basically the stick. One of the major instruments, it's the Energy Efficiency Directive, with Article 8 on the energy audit obligation, which is in the EU regulation. And I think at the time I was in Ukraine, this article was going to be transposed, and I'm not sure now if it has been implemented or not in Ukraine, but I believe that at least the work are in that direction. And we heard that in the current directive, Article 8 is tackling non-SMEs, and SMEs are defined according to the size and to their turnover. And basically, all large companies, which are not SMEs, had to carry out an energy audit every 4 years, or if they had implemented an energy management system, it was also recognized. But it was a bit difficult and to know which SMEs, which companies are SMEs, which one are non-SMEs. And also it was not linked to energy consumption. Therefore, the current proposal of the recast of the EED is to improve that. And we have two thresholds, which are still under discussion. The first threshold is that companies over with more than 100 terajoule energy consumption will have to implement an EMS, and companies over 10 terajoule will have to carry out an energy audit. It's important, it's still in discussion, the threshold, but basically the message is clear. The more energy you consume, then you have to have an EMS, and otherwise an energy audit. And also it's important to stress that in the new recast, we will have also obligation that the recommendations have to be transmitted to the management, so that the chance to have implementation of measures will be higher. And also the new regulations aim to improve the quality check, because in the past energy audits were not always from the best quality. On the level of member states, we can see that the stick is even more harder, because some member states have been further and are asking now to have a mandatory implementation of energy efficiency measures. It's the case in the Netherlands, but also a few weeks ago, Germany decided to go the same way and to have a mandatory implementation of cost-effective energy efficiency measures. And this has to be implemented within 18 months. So it's a very massive, I would say, weapon from the regulatory point of view. Now, if we are looking for financial instruments, so now the carrots, you can see also that we have a kind of bundle of interesting instruments. And in the EU, it's not the work of the European Commission to have that. It's in the hands of the member states. And if we have a look at Germany, we can see some interesting policies in that case. The first one is a funding scheme for audits, focusing on SMEs, because we could see before that small companies are not obliged to have an energy audit, but still they can have a large potential of improving energy consumption and decreasing it. Therefore, it's important to focus also on SMEs, and in order to motivate SMEs to make an energy audit, there's a subsidy scheme where 80% of the energy audit costs are covered by the state, and the maximum amount reimbursed is depending on the energy consumption. So the higher the consumption is, the higher the amount of money can be for the subsidy. And this program was pretty successful because we have seen more than 30,000 energy audits carried out in Germany with that scheme. Then after companies know which are the measures to be done, it's important to support them further for the implementation of the measures. And here the second interesting scheme is the one for cross-cutting technologies. So in this scheme, we are looking for not processes, but technologies like motors, pumps, compressed air or lighting, etc. So that are pretty simple technologies, but that can be very efficient compared to other one. And here in that scheme, the state supports 30% of the additional cost, which are directly linked to energy efficiency. And for SMEs to have an extra incentive, there's 10% more subsidy for them. And this program is very successful because not only because of the subsidy itself, but also because it's a very simple program. You have a very slim application scheme, and therefore many companies and many SMEs are applying for it. There were over 33,000 projects financed by this scheme. And it's important to see that the lower effect is around 4. So for any euro spent in the scheme, a company will invest from his pocket 4 euros. And it delivers a lot of savings. There's also a further program, which is the promotion of prevention of waste heat and use of waste heat. And this program is a bit flexible because you can get support in direct subsidy or support as a subsidy for loans. And we have also around 30% of subsidy for this scheme, and SMEs are also focused and will get 10% additional bonus. And this scheme was also pretty successful. It was just a few examples to show you how a framework can really support companies in knowing their energy efficiency gap, but also in implementing according to the situation. And finally, I wanted also to show an example, which is a mix of information and networking. So it's a kind of tambourine here. It is the concept of energy efficiency networks where companies will work together and exchange together experience in a network. So after the first year, when a group of 10 or 15 companies are in the same network, they will exchange experience. They will set a target on individual companies, but also on the whole network. And they will be motivated and exchange a lot of experience and also know about the challenges. I believe also that during the war or even after the war, it will be important for companies to have a lot of exchange on how to deal with the situation, how to find providers, which solutions are working. And we can see that already in peaceful time, this concept is very successful, and all companies involved in a network usually are really moving faster towards energy efficiency and towards implementation of energy audit and energy audit recommendations. This concept was already experienced successfully in Ukraine. I think it was in 2018 that the first 3 networks started with the support of GIZ. And I hope that the work is still ongoing and that the instrument will be used much more broadly. So I wanted to be brief, just to show you a bit the typical pillars that we have to improve energy efficiency. And I hope that Ukraine will get support technically and financially to implement further all these package of policy and instruments to foster energy efficiency. Thank you.
Anthony, thank you so much. I see that Valerii is now here. Please, Mr. Bezus, give us your feedback and final remarks after the session.
Thank you, Oleksandr, and many thanks to all the colleagues. You know, it's a bit stressful trying to follow the discussion with an eye and one ear and trying to monitor the window from another ones, trying to spot those kamikaze drones or missiles or anything that Russian could throw at us. But actually, it's no points for monitoring. Nevertheless, you know, it's kind of psychology. So jokes behind, I want to underline that it's very important for us to have your thoughts and have your vision on on the matter, on the subject of our discussion, because what motivates us most are the thoughts of or our dreams on how we will proceed with rebuilding our country on the modern and energy efficient basis. So thank you very much for your time, for your experiences, for your knowledges, and for your thoughts that you have shared, and in general for your support. I hope that we can receive this session and this meeting, this discussion as one of the starting milestones at the process of discussing and actually acting on gathering all the thoughts and all the approaches on how to rebuild Ukraine and how to get to our goals in energy efficiency and in decarbonization and in general and green transition. So thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughts, for your support. Keep in touch.
Thank you, colleagues. This session is finished. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Keep
Take
safe.
care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.